Hello and welcome to the Droid and Dragon Cantina, a podcast highlighting independent science fiction and fantasy authors. Our guest this week is Lisa Amowitz, a graphic designer and teacher turned novelist who has written the Lost Garden series, Breaking Glass and Until Beth. We talked about her journey into the world of fantasy writing with the city of New York humming in the background. So, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi there.
So right at the top, let's tell the people about I guess your main projects, or what are your bigger book projects that are out there right now.
Well, right now I have the series, the Lost Garden series, which started with the book An Island Strange and Wild, which is it's called a retelling, but it's really like a reimagining mashup, turn it upside down and then step on it of The Secret Garden, which was a book that I was obsessed with growing up. And so it started out a very long time ago. I started writing it and I couldn't get it to work. And then I finally was able to release it after getting a lot of help from friends and paid individuals. I finally was able to put it out there myself in a year ago, February 2024. And since then, I have released a prequel called A Promise Bright and Fragile, and also a book 2 called A Secret Deep and Savage. And that came out in December. And I'm never going to do that again, release 3 books in the same series in the same year, ever. I'm not doing that. So I am hoping and planning to release book 3 of the series later in the year, December, November. And believe it or not, after that, there is a 4th one, which definitely is not coming out until sometime in 2026.
So what possessed you to release 3 books in 1 year?
Naivete? Or maybe that's being kind. Stupidity? Just, naivete. Because, you see, the thing is that book was already written and ready to go. So I figured, oh, hey, look how, like, the other book that I released independently before that was already written. So I just didn't understand. And the draft of the second book was fully written. At least I thought it was. So I just didn't understand how long it was going to take me to finish that book 2. And maybe it's because I did pump out that prequel in a record amount of time. I just got it out there really quickly from February, and it was out in June. It's short, But I don't know if you know this about me, but I design all my own covers. So not only do I have to write the book, get it edited, go through all the marketing, but I also have to design the covers too. So not again.
Punishment, huh?
No. Well, this year I am going to attempt to release 2 books. We'll see how that goes.
So it sounds, like with those first 3, did you already have like a lot of them written beforehand so that allowed you to?
Yeah.
Most people will kind of do one, then start writing the next one, release that, then start writing the next one. But like, it sounds like you already kind of had them on deck.
Maybe, sort of.
To some degree.
To some degree. I mean, part of it is just, like I said, naivete. And also, I'm going to name drop here. I'll blame it on her. I have a cover design client. Hi, Sierra friend. And she was, I think she released, I don't know, I lost track, like maybe 4 books in 2024. I did all the covers. So we were rapidly doing the covers. 3 or 4. And she was like, yeah, that's how you have to get the algorithm, but you have to release a lot of books, la, 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 la. I'm like, okay, I'll learn from you. And then now she tells me, I'm never doing that again. I go, neither am I. Like, I'm nuts. So we have both learned, it got done. We managed to do it, but it cost. Not so much money, but sanity.
Yeah, I've known other authors who have done that. but it's usually like one will be a novel, and then maybe they'll do like a little short novella or something else. And like they'll do the novel, they'll promote the hell out of it, and then maybe the other short thing comes out months later.
Yeah,
and then they'll do a little time on that, and they'll come back to the other. But like doing 3 books in 1 year.
You're right that some of it was pre-written, and that's part of the reason I thought I could do it. So An Island Strange and Wild has been in development in one way or another since, you're not going to believe this, since 2013. Yes, I said that. And it must have been through, I don't know, dozens of drafts and revisions and complete, ripping it apart kind of things. But it was finished and ready as of sometime in 2023. And the cover was ready and everything was ready. And I was just trying to get my ARC team together and stuff. And I was able to kind of take my time and do that right. And then it was really well received. So I thought, and people started to, ask me, why did you kill that character in the first chapter? And what's his story? And we want to know more about Tyler. So that gave me the idea, well, this would be a really good author magnet if I could write the prequel and make everybody happy so they would find out what happened prior to the so that actually got done really quick, but it was very short. It was only 8 chapters, and it came together really quickly. So, I was able to get that done really quickly. And like I said, the cover was already designed, and I just had to kind of, the basic style of the cover was already designed, so it was easy to just keep riffing on that. So, so also I should mention that since book 1 had been finished quite a while before, I had started drafting the book 2 in the summer of 2023. So in my genius thinking, I thought, well, I have drafted, 75% of book 2. So here's what happened. Okay. So yes, I released An Island Strange and Wild in February 2024. I had a really great group of ARC readers, and they were really active, pushing and spreading the word. I have a Facebook group. They're in there. The Facebook group, these things get really, the algorithm tends to ruin your group after a while. So it's a little quiet right now, but it's okay. They're there. And then, they were there and available and interested when the prequel came out. So I really wanted to keep that momentum. So then I thought, okay, so I could finish writing A Secret Deep and Savage this summer, because I'm a professor. I didn't mention that. I'm a professor. I teach graphic design. So I have the great good fortune of having what sounds like a very easy life, although somehow I managed to never have time for anything. But I am off literally all summer. And I head for the hills of New York State, which, believe me, New York State has beautiful, beautiful country. It's not a whole big city. It's a state with lots of with mountains and rivers. So I thought, I'll be up there in the mountains and the rivers, and I will finish this book. Well, woe be unto me. What I did not expect was that, number one, I was going to have to be teaching a whole new course in September, late August. And number 2, it was in a completely new teaching platform. So as I plunked away on this book in July, August 1st came. Am I going on too long? Came with a phone call from my chairperson. Well, the other class we were going to give you didn't fill. I'm like, oh, good. That means I don't have to teach the 3rd class. He goes, oh, no, we're going to give you this other course, the one you haven't taught in 12 years. And you're going to have to build it from scratch in an entirely new platform. So I'm like, I got to finish writing this book. So suddenly life became really crazy and intense. So I was doing it. I had my time all carved up. I'm like writing for 2 hours, and then I'm working on my class stuff and trying to go to the gym and maybe trying to relax in the great outdoors a little, And so I'm writing the book. It's already like classes begin in late August. I'm like, the book isn't done. I scheduled it. I scheduled it for, I didn't mention, I scheduled it for pre-order in November.
Oh.
On Amazon. Yeah, I did that. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's
man,
like,
you just kind of like putting the screw to yourself here.
Oh, what I did to myself. Oh gosh, have I learned? Anyway, so yes, it was scheduled to come out in November, and here it is in August, and I'm frantically rushing to get my class ready, and classes are beginning. And then I look at this book and I'm like, this book is going to be 600 pages. How? What do I do? So that I heard this podcast. I don't remember what it was, but oh no, it was Bobby Kim. he's my TikTok guru guy, Bobby. He was telling somebody, he goes, oh, why don't you split your book up? Not me, somebody else. He goes, your book is too long, just split them up. And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. So that book became 2 books, but it still wasn't done. And so what I ended up doing was I was able to postpone the release date till December, but that was it. If I didn't get it out on December 12th or 13th, Amazon was going to put me in some kind of Amazon jail, like not let me do pre-orders for like forever, or for, some jail-like thing. And it was going to be terrible. And I was like, no, I got to have it out. So,
but was it that hard deadline that kind of, do you think that helped you get it done just because?
Of course it helped me get it done, but it also nearly killed me, and it nearly killed my editor and very, very close friend, Emily Collin, who I have a symbiotic relationship with, in that I design a good deal of her covers and she edits for me. And we also beta read. And actually, tomorrow I am getting on a plane to visit her in North Carolina, because we are also very good friends in real life, in addition to being writer buddies. So I will say that without her, and I tortured her, and it was like a month and a half of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and really late nights and teaching, and both of us going completely crazy.
So those first 3 books, were 2 of them the one that you were initially planning on writing, and you just broke it up into 2? And then what about the 3rd one? Or did that?
Oh, no. Originally, yeah. What happened was when I first wrote this book, I wasn't quite sure there was going to actually be a series. But, actually, after I really rewrote it a lot, I said, this is a series. This book is not, it can't just end where it ends. So I knew there was going to be a trilogy for quite a long time, and I knew what was going to more or less have to happen in the trilogy. But I did not know there would be a prequel, and I did not know that the second book would become 2 books and that it would be a 4-book series. I did not know that.
So we spent all this time talking about the writing of it. Tell people what the story is actually about.
Oh, that would be a great idea.
You obviously don't want to give away the story, but can I give people a little tease?
Sure. It's about it's a young adult I call it a young adult romantic fantasy, because central to it is this love story. But it's not really romantasy, because first of all, it can't be as spicy as
if you're right for young adults, you're obviously there's a ceiling or a limit.
It's like chai tea. It's hot chai tea. It's like tea spicy with a lot of steam coming up. So I think it's about as spicy as YA could get. There's closed door stuff. There's a little bit of language. So it's an upper,
not necessarily R.
Yeah, it's a PG-13 upper YA. It has a lot of dark themes in it. It's not for young children. It's pretty intense in a lot of ways. It has accidental death. It has some crazy stuff in it. So anyway, it is centrally about this young lady who's 18. Her name is Rosalie Gattel, and she is a very sciencey girl. So I guess for whatever reason, I wrote about somebody who's the complete opposite of me. And she's very logical, and she doesn't believe in anything woo-woo or weird or whatever. And she's also kind of in her mother's pouch. Her mother is a very, very high-powered, successful businesswoman, and she doesn't know. Her father's been gone, passed away for a number of years, and she really misses him, and she kind of wants to follow in his footsteps. He was a famous science writer, environmental guy. And I know this is really hard to tell us, but it starts out with her having this sort of secret meeting with this boy she has a crush on, Tyler. And he also is obsessed with environmental science and reveres her dead father. And, you know, he wants to pursue environmental science and save the planet, and so does she. But her mother's like got other ideas for her. Nope, you're going to be a physicist or something. I can't remember. But she wanted to be a botanist. She's really into plants and flowers and environment. And anyway, so Tyler gets her to sneak out of her house, and they go on this boat together. And he goes, listen, you know, they're supposed to go away together to this pre-college thing that they both got into, and pre-college program. And he tells her on the boat, I'm not going. I'm going back to the island that I'm from, because he's a foster kid, and I want you to come with me. And she's about to admit to him that she's in love with him, and he seems like he's about to admit he's in love with her. And then she's like, I can't do that. My mother. He goes, oh, you know, you always do what your mother wants. You never, you just never think for yourself. You know what you really want. You're just doing what she tells you to do. And she's like, but I can't. I can't. And then something really terrible happens, and I'm not going to tell you, but she does end up defying her mother. And she goes to this island where he's from, which is this very strange place called Saltane Island. It's not real, but it's off the coast of Maine, where there's a lot of weird, creepy little islands. And it's weirdly temperate. It's weirdly temperate where it shouldn't be. And so she gets there, and she discovers a lot of very bizarre things and secrets about her past and about Tyler and about her whole family and a whole magical past and history and heritage that her mother was keeping from her. And I can't tell you anymore, but I will tell you that she does meet someone else. Okay, so Tyler, I already gave away the store on that. Tyler doesn't make it to that island. And, you know, you want to find out how and why, read the book. And then you want to find out what happened to Tyler before what happened in An Island Stranger. Well, you got to read that book. And so she meets this guy, Liam, who is a towny local guy on the island. And he is very irritating to her, because he keeps doing very strange things with plants, and he's always showing up where she doesn't want him to be. And she discovers this garden on the island that's she's like really intrigued by. And he's like, you never saw that. That doesn't exist. So it's this relationship between them develops. Like she finds him very disturbingly appealing, and she thinks he looks like Tyler, and it's really weird. And she's really drawn to him, but she's really annoyed by him because he represents everything that's against her belief system. He's magic. He does weird things with plants. He gives her these berries, and he say, eat these, because she got hurt. And she's like, what are they? And then she ends up being healed overnight. So she's really skeptical and really annoyed by him. And she's trying to research stuff at the same time. And he's sort of hindering and helping her. So they develop this relationship that heats up. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why they can't be together, and why she can't see the garden or can't go to the garden, and what the garden means. And that's what it is.
And then you know, yeah, to learn more, you know, purchase the book.
There's a lot of secrets. I can't tell you any more than that.
Now, so like you mentioned the secret garden as being one of the inspirations for this. Was there like other stuff that you kind of, you know, weaved into it?
Absolutely. It takes me a while to figure that out, but I realized I was also inspired by the TV show Lost, I think. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of YA writers that I love. One of my all-time favorites is Maggie Stiefvater, and there's this book called the Raven Boys Cycle. Yeah, that is all about this quest and search for this king. And it has things like ley lines and magical forests and, the interrelationships of the different boys. And I do think Tyler kind of is a lot like the character Adam in the Raven Boys, who's like this really brilliant poor kid who lives in like a trailer and has abusive parents. So I feel like he's kind of like that, so yeah, I think that there's a lot of influences there, I feel like I'm just like a human blender.
So who are some of those authors as you were, I'm assuming you're a big reader, because I feel like a lot of authors are,
yeah.
Like even if they don't, maybe if they don't even start picking it up until like later, later in life. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, so what did you pick up? Did you always have the writing bug, or is that something that kind of came to you later on?
I will tell you that clearly I'm not that young, and I did not start writing until my kids were, until around 20 years ago. I started writing, and I actually actively writing, and I've always been an artist, a designer, an artist. That's always been me, how I expressed myself. And I started out just wanting to draw and doing art. And then eventually I discovered that I really loved graphic design. I wanted to be an illustrator. Okay. That's what I went to college for. I was going to be an illustrator. So that's a person who clearly likes stories and wants to portray them in images. And I used to dabble at writing stuff that I could then illustrate, but I never got very far. Like, I was good with words. I always got 100 on everything. I got AP English. I didn't have to take English in college because I was that good at it. But that doesn't make you a writer. That just makes you somebody who's good at, doing essays and term papers and stuff like that, and I talk a lot, clearly. So I was good at, like, I had this art show many years ago, and my friend who's a writer says, because, you're really good at writing. Like, you should do more with that. I'm like, well, I'm an art. What are you talking about? Okay. So fast forward, I get a job as a professor, well before I started writing. And when you're a new professor, you have to get grants. Like, I'm an artist, design professor. I'm not a scientist, so I don't need a PhD, but I had to get an MFA. I had an MFA, and I still had to prove I was worthy of almost PhD level. So I would get these, I got a grant to do one thing, and I wanted another one. So I'm like, what if I do a children's book? So this was in 2004 or 5 or 3, I don't remember. And this was 2 years after 9/11. Okay. So my youngest child was, I don't know, 5, 6, and my other child was 4 years older, 11, 12, I don't know. And they were.
We should point out, you live, like, while you're from, I know you live in New York City, right?
I live in New York City. 9/11 happened while I was teaching. Yeah. I was driving to work. I heard the plane crashed into the World Trade Tower. I'm like, oh, it must be a small plane. I get there, and my, the office assistant goes, another plane crashed into the tower. We didn't have really good internet then or good cell service. So I spent the morning with the half of my class that came in looking at each other and going, oh. Eventually they kicked us off the campus. And my kids were in school. I had to go get them. Anyway, it was a very traumatic thing. But what I'm telling you is, this following years or so, my son started reading Harry Potter, and I started reading Harry Potter. And I guess Harry Potter is a big reason I started writing, because what I realized was, wow, you could really process trauma with a children's book. Like, Harry Potter had so much darkness in it. Mm-hmm. And it just somehow soothed me, to see these kids facing, because I felt like my kids went through something really horrible. Like, I used to feel like we were so safe here. And I just had to come to the conclusion that I couldn't really protect my kids. Even as my kids got older, they were taking the train, the subway. And I'm like, every day my kids leaving, there's danger out there. New York City has never been known to be the world's safest place, but it never occurred to us that somebody would bomb us or try to, come in from another country and, kill us. And I had to raise my children with that. So somehow reading Harry Potter and reading Harry Potter to my youngest child was very comforting to me. I can't explain why, but once I started to decide I was going to do my children's book for that grant, I became a writer because I wanted a laptop. Okay, like this is literally the dark secret of all secrets. I'm like, yeah, I'll ask for a laptop. Now, mind you, I did not know what YA was. I didn't know that you can't really illustrate books like middle grade books like Harry Potter. I didn't know anything. So I do this whole grant to write an illustrated children's book, like the kinds I grew up with, like Secret Garden. It had illustrations. What did I know? So I get the grant, and then I have to start writing it. And I'm like, what? So I get some index cards, and I start writing down these characters, right? And that was probably in 2003, and something hit me, and I just didn't care about the illustrations, and I didn't care. I just started writing for 2 years straight, to the point where my best friend says to me, she's an artist, not a writer. She said, "What's wrong with you?" Actually, one of my best friends kept reading it, and the other one was like, "Something is wrong with you. You're just so preoccupied. You don't have any time for anybody." I go, "I have a dark confession to make." And she's like, "What? Are you on drugs?" I'm like, "No, I've been writing." It was like that.
Like, I'm addicted to,
I became addicted.
Word.
But I should tell you that what I wrote was the worst thing ever. But even so, I read it every night to my kid, and my other best friend, Joanne. Hi, Joanne. She read that darn thing. And my cousin, Mark, who's deceased. They both read it, and they loved it. But it was terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. It was so bad.
Well,
so
it's
bad.
cool that you say that, because I feel like a lot of people, I think where a lot of young writers or people who are aspiring writers, where they kind of trip and fall, and some of them don't get back up, is because they'll write that initial thing, and then they're like, "Oh, this is not good." So then it shuts them down, and it's like a hump. A lot of writers starting out can't get over. Like, you have to give yourself permission to be bad at it until you're good at it.
Right. Stephen King says all first drafts are crappy, shitty, can I curse? And, of course, I thought it was the greatest thing ever written. I didn't know it was terrible until later, but it was okay. I was devastated to find out that it was not going to ever get published, and it was really bad, and all those illustrations I did were never going to go anywhere. But I did get the laptop. So I got a laptop and a writing bug, and I did the illustrations, and I turned in stuff for my grant. Yay! And so that was probably 2004, I think it was 2005 when I realized that I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever at all. So I found an online critique group. This was before social media, okay, but there was Yahoo groups. So I found an online critique group. And I would say that what happened in the next 3 years was like going to grad school or getting another degree in creative writing. I found people in that group that ripped me to shreds. And sometimes I got really upset and offended, and I wanted to quit. And other times I just kept going. So that's my advice to all aspiring writers.
What was it that kept you going, I have to ask? Like, was it just kind of like stubbornness or like?
No, I've discovered something about myself that I'm going to tell you how it all makes sense in the end. And I could swear to you, I did not figure this out until not that a really embarrassingly short time ago, that I'm a natural storyteller. It's why I don't shut up when I talk. I just talk and talk and talk because I love telling stories. I'm nosy about everybody because I love stories. Every time somebody tells me something, I think of other stories. And so I am a storyteller. When I start making stuff up, weird doors open in my brain that I didn't even know was there. And I just need it. That's the drug I need. It's the thing. It would be nice to have commercial success, but I absolutely need that. Like, it's not enough for me just to paint pictures, to do abstracts. That's why I wanted to be an illustrator, because I needed the story. But I'm a failed illustrator. I just realized there was no future in that for me. I think I did pretty well as a graphic designer. I'm a professor. I love it. I love teaching it, but, and it is storytelling. Graphic design is storytelling.
Well, like you look, a lot of the great paintings or, they're telling you a story, even if it's just kind of captured in one image. But they're like, there's a great YouTube channel out there called like Great Art Explained, and they'll go and tell you the whole history behind this and why this image was chosen, because it's emblematic of A, B, and C, and all, like, and you find out that most of those the pictures that are kind of burned in your mind from like art class, if you've ever taken any number of them.
Of course I have. Got an MFA.
As I know you have, but I'm saying even people out there like who might like art enough to maybe remember some pictures, but there's always like a story behind it or something in that image that is it's kind of like, or even if it's not a story, that's like opening up a doorway to a story.
Right. But the thing is with art, I find I use different pieces of parts of my brain. I stopped doing the kind of art where I was consciously telling a story. And for me, graphic design is very intentional, and it's about creating an illusion and putting information out there in a way that's digestible. You're telling a story, but you're also manipulating people. It's a very powerful thing. I tell my students, I'm like, do you know, you're ninjas. You are like actually warping people's minds, and you're making them do and look at things in the way you want them to. And for me, art became not so much that. It became subconscious release. Like, what am I feeling? What's inside of me that I can't access? And I wasn't like, it's not about constructing a story. It's more a personal expression. And you'll find that most of the art in history that tells a story, like the old stuff, was hired. They were hired to do that. There were no cameras. So it was like, that's what art was until the dawn of the camera. It was about documentation and also patronage and things like that, and it was about teaching people stuff because they didn't know how to read. So when the camera came along, art changed. That's when you got impressionism and abstract expressionism and all that stuff. And photography then became the thing for documentation. But now, photography has art too. My son is a photographer, and his photography is strictly art. Art. It's all like sort of his own subconscious stories he's telling that only make sense to him and maybe not to anyone else. But so what I found with the writing, it was like back to when I was a child and I used to play act, and I used to just make up stuff, like it's like playing make believe.
I'm curious to know, one of the big things that a lot of writers have to kind of have drilled into them is this idea of show, don't tell. But as an artist, that is, you're not telling, you're having to show just by the nature of the medium. Did that help when you got into writing?
I yes and no. I think one thing I was always kind of instinctively good at was description. And people always say, oh, your writing is so poetic. You really describe things well. And I'm all, well, that's because I could see it in my head. But the problem is I also felt things too. And I didn't understand that you can't tell people, like, she felt this and she felt that. Like, I could say, oh, the fountain was beautiful, colors of blue and green. And then I would say, and then she was amazed by the sight. That's the telling part, that even though that doesn't being an artist doesn't help you there. You have to literally show how she ran up to the fountain and leaned over the edge and tried to drink the water, like you have to show the emotions in action and in dialogue. So that's the hard thing that none of my anything prepared me for. Not my art, not my being a really good high school English student. That's art, that's craft. That's a specific craft to fiction writing.
Well, I've seen, like I said, I do think it's, and you can kind of shoot me down on this theory if I'm wrong. I think does it help? I think maybe it coming from an artistic background, you already kind of have that mindset again. It's like, you can tell someone like, oh, so-and-so was amazed, but like, especially coming from like art, you have to you get to show it with like their facial expression, their body movement. And it's that thing I think I've seen, because I've seen a lot of like young writers or people who are just starting out, they get lost in the abstract stuff, and you can tell in the writing because they dive into that place trying to get something out of it, but because they're more in a telling mindset than a showing mindset.
Yeah.
It's not as effective versus as, again, you showing some amazing, like, okay, like what's their, like, are they sweating? Are they, are they,
right,
is their heart racing? Things that are something concrete that you can latch onto as a concept or something that you've experienced to bring that across.
Well, I think it helps me to do it, but it didn't help me to know it. It helped me to people helped me learn that, critiquers, editors, just various people who were better writers than me would say, and then books I've read, put people in the moment, when you're a visual person, you see this movie in your head and you think if you just, tell people what you're seeing, that they're going to be there with you. But then you have to realize that, no, you have to create a full sensory experience. You have to show how the person's feeling, like how their skin feels against their sweaty skin feels against their, jersey or whatever. Like you have to explain all that. And it's like, you have to literally describe all of that stuff, not just what they see, like they're a human camera. And then the other thing I had to learn was your character needs agency. This was the problem with An Island Strange and Wild, which really speaks to my lack of skill and knowledge, was that I was really great at describing the island and all the stuff she saw and experienced and all the stuff that happened to her. But people were like, we hate Rosalie because she has no agency. She's too passive. She doesn't do anything. She just lets things happen to her. I'm like, oh, that has to happen? So I didn't know that either. I still struggle with that. Like every book I write, it's always a struggle. It's not like, la-di-da-di-da.
Well, it's always a thing, like I think the idea are talking about, character driven narratives versus plot driven narratives, or again, but I think it's also, it's not unlike real life. Sometimes you got people that are out there making things happen, and then there's people where just stuff is constantly happening to them. So.
Yeah, but I do think in fiction, nobody wants to read a book that the character has no agencies. I think character driven means that you're mainly interested in the interpersonal relationships of the characters and, their, the setting and the history isn't as important as what they experience and how they interact with each other. Whereas a plot-driven narrative, the character, it's the adventures the character goes on. I'm very interested in how all those things impact my character. So I am kind of both. Like I love all the crazy stuff, but then I love to figure out, well, how does that affect this character? And how does the history of these characters affect how they react to each other, and why they would clash or why they would relate. Like I'm really interested in that stuff. Like I like to make up weird situations and then apply actual human behavior to it.
So would you say in this, writing style wise, there's two major camps, according to the prevailing wisdom. Are you a plotter or a pantser? Or a bit of both?
I'm a bit of both, because I will always try to be a plotter. I can't, I thought I had it all plotted out, that book too. Oh, sure. I had it all done. And then because I'm me and because I can't help but going off on a tangent with everything I do, including conversations that I have, which you might have noticed, I just go right off the rails. And my book does, it's like, I'm like, wait, who's that? Or wait, they're together? They're a couple? I'm like, I didn't know that. So this is what I do to myself. Like literally, or, somebody else will come along and go, oh, wouldn't it be nice if so-and-so had a thing with so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I'll try to plot things out. I will try so hard. But then when I start writing, it's like you map out your trail, like you're in the woods and you have a trail all mapped out, and then you discover another secret trail that you didn't know was there, and you go down that, and then you're completely off the trail. So that's me.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Sturgill Simpson, a country music singer. He says, most thoughts deserve two or three more. So It sounds like a lot of that. Like I've heard someone, Catherine Weibel, a writer I know, like use the term a plantster or plantster. Like they kind of almost like the idea of like you're
Yeah, that's me. I'm like a
planting seeds, but
plantster.
you're kind of that middle ground where you're almost you have very specific thing. You plant some very specific seeds, but you're also kind of having to deal with it kind of as it grows.
Right. I'm like a hiker, right? Like I could plan my. I'm not going to go into the woods without like supplies and kind of a basic understanding, but then, I might find some unexpected terrain and want to explore it. And that's kind of what my character Rosalie's like that. She thinks she knows everything she's doing. She's got it all figured out. And then nothing goes at all like she thought at all. So I guess the whole book is kind of like a metaphor for how I write. But before we go, can I tell you about the new thing I'm doing?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So I have decided that this series will most likely be the last YA series that I write. Oh my God. Stop that. I didn't say Siri. I said series. It's there. Like, hi, did you say my name? I'm not talking about you. Go away. Go, Siri.
Talk today.
And she's in a male voice too, which is really weird. Oh, wow. I don't know. It's my new computer. It decided to sound like a male. Anyway, so I have decided that as much as I love writing YA, I think that my whole mentality has changed. My kids are grown. So, when I started writing YA, when I had a young child and a sort of a preteen, so I was very interested in how my son's brain worked. I still haven't figured that out, mind you, even though he's almost 34. But part of it was just my fascination. I was around a lot of teenagers and kids, they were always around me. And some of my inspiration came from them, where my son's friend would go, if you date her, I'm never talking to you again. And whole plots sprang out of things like that, but I do teach. I'm around young people. They're not teenage. Well, they're 19, 18, but they don't count because they're not technically, they're in college. So, and they're great. I adore them. I love them, but they're not teenagers. Teenagers are a thing unto themselves. And I just don't think I know enough about how Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever they are, teenagers are. I've been around them recently at a few family events, and I look at them like, what are they saying? What are they doing? What does it mean? So I've decided that I am no longer properly in the proper mindset to write young adult, nor am I really that interested in it, because what I'm really writing is probably NA. So maybe I'll do that, like I'll kind of veer a little more into the romantic-y thing at some point. I don't know, but I don't like writing really spicy stuff. So I don't know. But what I will tell you, what I've decided to do is I've switched genres completely. So I'm editing a cozy paranormal mystery that I hope to release in July. It's called A Whiff of Murder, and I hope it'll be a series. It's about these two mystery writing twin sisters who are fraternal twins who do not get along at all. And so one of them is it's like two parts of me, really. One is like this, I'm not a flirt, but maybe I want to be. She's a horrible, horrible flirt. She's just incorrigible. And the other one is just like nervous and anxious and afraid of her shadow. And so they both have this clairvoyant ability that they call prickles. And the flirty one smells things that give her premonitions, and the nervous one touches things, but she always wears gloves. And they own shops right next to each other in this upstate, in a fake version of a real upstate town. The real upstate town is Chatham, New York, that I have been going to 5 summers in a row. And it's an adorable town. It's so quaint. And it literally has the stores in it that I envisioned them like having, like 2 stores with a big hallway in between. And I actually have them, I changed the town. The town is called Chatterhook because in Columbia County, New York, there's a town called Chatham. And there's a town called Kinderhook. So, hey, Chatterhook.
Hey,
so
works for me.
Yeah.
I noticed on before we jump off, there was another book on your site that caught my Until Beth.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I had a publisher. I still do. Yes, I am still published by them. I was published traditionally starting in 2013. My first book was Breaking Glass. And if you look really hard, you'll see that book exists too. And I re-released that book. That was my first indie foray. But that was easy because it was all written. That came out in 2013 with Spencer Hill Press, and it was really popular. And then I had another book called Vision, which they still have, which is like a horror serial killer book. And then I was writing the series Until Beth, Life in Beth series. And I wrote that book and it got released. And then a lot of big changes happened at Spencer Hill Press, which we don't need to go into, but I no longer wanted to complete that series for them. And so it's out there and I could have the rights back to it at any time and complete the series. So who knows? Maybe.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
So as we have as we're coming up upon the hour, tell people where they can find you online and or where they can, if they want to learn more about your stuff or if they want to at you on social, if you're wherever you're at.
Well, just look up Lisa Amowitz, and I am literally the only one that exists. So I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram at lisa.amowitz_author. Yeah. Facebook is just Lisa Amowitz. I have a Facebook readers group that if you search for, you could find, and I'll ask you if you've read the books, and if you have and you like me and you want to come in there, you can. I have a website, lisaamowitz.com. And I'm on Blue Sky too. And and I'm on TikTok. And I got a lot of accounts on TikTok. So if you just search Lisa Amowitz, it'll all come up. And I am going to be at two places. I'm going to be at the Gold Coast Author Fair on Long Island, over the bridge from here in Oyster Bay, Long Island on May 17th. I don't know which day, but it's the weekend of May 17th and 18th and maybe the 16th that night. So I'm going to be one of their featured authors and going to be on a panel of some kind. I don't know which yet. And then in July, my friends and my writer buddies and I are all going to be at Literary Love Savannah. So we'll be down closer to you. And it's a 4-day, 5-day reader focused, but Lollapalooza. So I don't know if they're still selling tickets for readers. Maybe they are, but it's my first time. And unfortunately it's the last one, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be super crazy fun. So that's it.
Awesome.
Oh, and I'm on Amazon. My books are exclusively on Amazon right now. Kindle Unlimited, or you could buy them.
Outstanding.
Peace out. That's
thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
That will be all for this episode. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. To learn more about this show or other podcasts, visit carcuttamedia.com/podcasts or follow us on social media at Carcutta Media. This recording or any portion thereof may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for use of brief quotations and a review. Copyright 2025 by Carcutta Media. All rights reserved.